I'm going to talk you through a Part C answer from the Hinduism paper. This is Hindu beliefs. And remember that on the religions papers, they're an hour long and you do 2 sets of A, B, C, D. In a Part C, we are suggesting that you make 4 points, so you give 4 answers directly related to the question, and then you back them up. And often that backing up will come from a text, but it could come from Gandhi, for example. When students face these questions that ask you to explain why something is important, often when they lose marks, it isn't because they don't know about Hinduism, but they're not applying their knowledge to the question. So this isn't saying explain Hindu beliefs about the Trimurti, but rather why the Trimurti is important to Hindus. And you will notice that repeatedly in my answer, I say this is an important belief. So there it is in paragraph 1. The Trimurti is also important. The Trimurti is also important. And finally, the Trimurti is also important. So the examiner is under no doubt that I am answering the question. I then start by saying that one reason why the Trimurti is important is because it is a key core belief, and you can see references to the Trimurti in the Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest Hindu texts. So this is not a later addition to Hindu beliefs, but it's at the core of what it is to be a Hindu, and so it's important. Then in my second paragraph, I've spoken about the cycle of life, and the Trimurti represents that cycle. So Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Note, I haven't expanded on those 3 roles because I've only got 8 minutes. I have then used as my source of wisdom one of the stories linked with the avatars of Vishnu, because I probably learnt that in case an avatar question comes up. And I've used the story of the boar saving the world by balancing it on his tusks. And I've done that because it's quite a strange story that's easy to remember. Then in my third paragraph, I've focused here on using lots of key terms, and so I've spoken about the fact that the Trimurti is important because it helps Hindus in their worship. And so trying to worship something that has no qualities is a difficult thing to do. If you want to worship something or have a relationship with it, it's easier if you can form a picture in your mind of what that thing is or what that thing does. And the Trimurti is Brahman with those qualities. And I have deliberately used the key term saguna to impress the examiner. And then you will note on the next line, I've deliberately used the word niguna, so Brahman without qualities. Again, I've done that deliberately. I've then linked that with my source of wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita. I've used a quote from Krishna, I am the basis of the formless Brahman. I have remembered that little key snippet. If you can't remember those exact words, if you could just remember the gist of it, that would do. And then in my final paragraph, I have spoken about the fact that 2 aspects of the Trimurti, so Vishnu and Shiva, are worshipped by the 2 largest denominations within Hinduism, and therefore the Trimurti is hugely important to a huge number of Hindus. I have then used again a source of wisdom, the Bhagavad Gita, so the same one as I've used in paragraph 3, but I've made a different point with it, and that's completely fine. And I have said that Krishna reminds Arjuna to show loving devotion or bhakti. I've chosen to use the word bhakti deliberately to impress the examiner, and so for that reason there are mandirs and shrines all over the world dedicated to Vishnu and Shiva, who are part of the Trimurti, and that's why the Trimurti is important. So just to recap, as I've been putting my answer together, I have made sure that I've linked back to the question at least the start of each paragraph, that I have used a source of wisdom in each paragraph, and you can use the same story more than once if you're doing something different with it. And I have deliberately chosen as many key terms as I can to make sure I get into that top band and get the top marks.